Felt like I got jumped last night, tapped into basketball, back-to-back games. Flannel and I were talking about this yesterday, like, man, we got to stay up tonight. And after I got beat up by the Michigan game, then the Pistons game. And that one was different because I kind of felt like, as a fan, I felt like Cade Cunningham. Where's the whistle at? I'm getting beat up. I'm getting the bruises. I'm getting the fouls. I told the people last night, like, I was just kind of posting stuff, and they're like, nah, bro, the refs. Like, I try to leave that out my coverage. But I'm a beat reporter. So when they step to the podium and they tell you, both Cade Cunningham and JB Bickerstaff, there is a crazy difference in how this game was reffed both ways. Bro, the Clippers didn't even get a good whistle. You look at the rest of their guys. They didn't really get a good whistle. But Harden, 20 free throw attempts to Cade 6. This game, it was a close game the whole way through until about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game where Bogdanovic went and hit back-to-back threes, and that was it. And it was just instantly reminding me of the fact that Tobias Harris also didn't play, and I do believe he would have been able to play that type of a role alongside of Cade because a lot of people were off last night except for Dennis Schroeder, and they do fall 123 to 115 to the Clippers, man. 50 burgers
I know,
from
and
Harden.
It's funny because James Harden, he turned back the clock in every way. He looked like MVP Rockets Harden, also including the amount of fouls he was able to bait. And I'm not saying that the free throws were the reason that the Pistons lost per se, because there's a lot of things that happened. Jalen Duren played his worst game in over a month. I think Asar played his worst game in over a month. Yeah. Tobias was out. Simone Fontecchio, at this point, I'm ready to launch out of a cannon, get off my team. Seriously, like I've had about enough. I know a lot of people have been having enough, but when I saw him airball a 3 last night, when I saw him go 0 for 3 again from 3, I can't take it anymore. But yeah, it is disappointing that James Harden himself had more free throw attempts than the entire Pistons team. And by the way, Cade was working in the paint a lot more than Harden was. There were at least 3. He should have had at least 6 or 8 more free throws. At least 3 or 4 more trips to the line. At least. And I'm being generous.
And that's just based on the way that they were calling the game for Harden. I don't have a problem if you're saying make these guys go out there and earn it. I like that. And you know what? There's other teams out there in the league, Mike Malone, the Denver Nuggets, who have stated, if we allow the refs to let this game be physical, this is one that the Pistons are going to have an opportunity to control. And that, to me, is where last night's game was one where they didn't let the more physical team be the one to benefit from that. They allowed effectively Harden, who's foul baiting, get everything, while on the other end you got Cade Cunningham, who is one of your top players in the entire league at paint points, and he's not getting the same stuff. And when he stepped to the podium, he said it was calls. When JB Bickerstaff stepped to the podium, he said it was calls. He said, look, phenomenal. Greatest, one of our greatest ISO scorers in the history of the game. And it gets tremendously more difficult when you're calling this many fouls on bumps, but you're not doing it the other way as well, on the other side. So that's where it's like, you know what? When you look at how close this game was, 123 to 115, and it took 20 free throw attempts and 50 points from James Harden, that's where those free throws definitely come into some type of scrutiny. And I do believe this. This is one of those games where I'm going to say it again. I do believe Tobias Harris would have made a difference for them, but they still had enough. You can't look over and gloss over what you pointed out, and that's a lot of the guys that have been the reason for the Pistons being so good. They just had an off night. They fell flat last night, and you know what? It was a struggle for us to even look at the game. Yeah. It was like 12:30. I'm sitting here like, gosh, this game is still on. So I'm sure that they were feeling that as well.
And I'm not gonna kill him too much for it, but Duren looked like early season Duren last night. I'll just say that. You're allowed to do it once. Just don't do it again. And he gets a ton of credit for how he's played lately, but last night just wasn't it. And I think one of the reasons why the free throw disparity was so frustrating is because Cade Cunningham played a great game last night. If he would have been officiated fairly, he could have gotten maybe 45
easily. I thought that last night was a night that he had an opportunity to get the 50. I thought 40 he was going to coast to, especially when you looked at the time left in the game and the fact that, okay, they haven't really given him his, but in the fourth quarter we know how much more aggressive that he gets and that maybe he gets an opportunity. But no, they just didn't. And it just felt like, for a young team, this is where you want to be able to have your vets having a decent game and having as many of your vets there as possible on the road in a big spot. I mean, Tobias Harris would feel a little bit comfortable probably there in that gym and on those rims. And so it's like not having that, it puts so much more pressure on those young guys who haven't been in this situation before, because this is the reality. They are not sneaking up on anybody. The Detroit Pistons of this year are not sneaking up on anybody. They're on everybody's radar. And you have players and other teams out there that are scrapping and realizing and knowing we have to beat this team. So it's like you're going to get people's best. James Harden is not sneaking into this game and just like, oh, you know what, we could take this thing lightly, especially knowing the players that they were missing. This was going to be one of those James Harden type games. And honestly, the Pistons, for everything we want to see right with the calls, they had to have known that. They needed to be able to respond a little bit better. And that's where you look at some of the players like Ausar and Jalen Duren. It's really on the defensive side of things where I would have liked to see things get a little bit better if we're talking about what they were going to do. I know that the offense struggled, but that to me, I feel like if Beasley was on, I don't even think we're sitting here talking about their offense per se.
Probably not. But yeah, you got to give credit to James Harden. Like I said, when I said that he turned back the clock, he did. He was great. It was a cool to me, just as a basketball fan. That was a little bit of a, yeah, Cade Cunningham, I know that you're great. I know you're the new hotness. I know that you're the all-star this year, but I'm still James Harden. So yeah. as a basketball fan, that was pretty cool to watch. As a Pistons fan, it was absolutely maddening. As somebody who gets very frustrated by watching James Harden play sometimes, it's very maddening. But you also have to give credit to Zubac as well, because he was a beast in the post. And that's another one where I'm like, Jalen Duren, looking a little bit too much like early season Jalen Duren, but just do it once and don't do it again. That's all I ask.
Yeah, and honestly, when I look at how it looked like a lot of different players, a lot of them were kind of in that motion or in that rhythm, that's where I do believe that there was something else there to this thing. I believe that the next game, what we've seen this Pistons team do is bounce back well.
Yeah.
You know, they've taken one loss, bounced back, 2 losses, bounced back 3. And then gone on some pretty nice runs. And so that's been the character of this team. That's what I expect out of this team going forward. This is another one of those games, not that you burn the tape and just move on, but it's one of those ones that you do just kind of move on from. You just say, you know what, we didn't play up to our standard. We recognize that, and next game it has to be all-out hustle and energy, because they did fight and battle, but some of the hallmarks that has underpinned their winning streaks and them being one of the best teams, it just wasn't on full display last night.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, you had pretty much everybody other than Tobias. I expect a team like that to go on as a favorite still and to be able to pull out a victory.
They could have won.
They could have won. They were battling. They were fighting. And Cade, I'm glad you shouted him out, because what gets lost in some of that stuff is the fact that Cade went out there and had a pretty efficient night. 15 of 25 from the floor. He was 60% from the floor shooting that ball, man.
Schroeder was really good too, I thought. Yes. And that's what's so tough. And KG, you said it. They could have won. We were talking yesterday about how they had no Norman Powell, they had no Kawhi Leonard. This is a game that the Pistons should win, and they didn't get it done for a myriad of different reasons. The calls didn't help, but as I said, there were some players that just weren't good enough. And Harden was special. Zubac was great. Bogdan closed down the club when it was time to close down the club. Yeah. And you just got to flush it and move on. What last night hurt was, I think, the Pistons' quest for 51. Those are the games you got to win if you're going to get to 51 wins. But I'm not saying it's 51 or bust. But KG, your revised prediction isn't looking as great today.
Yeah, true. We still got 3 more losses to go, I believe, before it's over. So we going to see what it's looking like. But
it's going to be that 46. That Kool-Aid 46.
Realistically, it might be closer to that. But y'all know what it is by now. But, yeah, this Pistons team, I felt like they could have won in a lot of ways last night because they were going bucket for bucket. Literally, James Harden and Cade Cunningham were going back and forth in that first half, and they were matching buckets. And I know it's crazy to say this because James Harden dropped 50 points, but there were a lot of points in that game where I felt like they defended Harden well. Like, you know, he couldn't necessarily get to his spots at the elbow like he normally has, and I felt like he did get bailed out by the whistle a lot. And then when he wasn't getting bailed out, he was just making the better play. But you didn't get enough from the rest of your team. You got destroyed in the paint. You usually are the one that dictates the paint.
Hallmarks.
But you gave up 60 points in the paint. You had 73% from the free throw line. You didn't really take advantage of your opportunities there. And the three-point shooting just was not there last night. Although Beasley didn't necessarily play horrible, you wished you had got a better effort from him. Dennis Schroeder was really the only other person that was really going out there and making an impact for the team the whole night. But overall, I thought they played well for a majority of the game. Like you said, it was a bogey back-to-back 3 stretch that really pulled the game away. But overall, you'll take this loss on the chin. They'll come back better, and hopefully they can do better with the rest of these games on the West Coast.
Yeah, and that's why I believe that it was really something that was just in the water for this team, whether it's the West Coast trip, the actual time of the game, or just the mojo just wasn't there, because you look at it and you call out kind of the hallmarks of what's made them really, really good, and none of them are there. They usually are pounding the glass, and they won the rebounding battle, but just by one rebound. And check this out, 34 rebounds for the Pistons.
That's
enough. Well below their season average. When you look at the other stats here, right, we talk about those stocks. They routinely beat teams in that. Steals 5-8. Clippers win that battle. Blocks 2-6. Clippers win that battle. So it's like the things that we're used to seeing and used to coming here and saying, yo, look at these things they've done. They just didn't get that done in last night's game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But one thing I will say is that Cade Cunningham absolutely needs to start getting the whistle. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to blame the game on that, but it's sickening at this point. Like you said, Harden had how many free throw attempts?
20
to Cade 6?
6.
What the fuck are we
Imagine
doing?
if Cade got those extra 14.
Exactly.
Imagine if he got extra 10. The Pistons win.
Thank you.
I don't even give him Harden.
Like, it's really disgusting at this point that you just literally refuse to blow the whistle for Cade, and you see it whenever he goes in the paint. He's getting clobbered. Like, it makes no sense to me. The league has to do better, bro. I'm standing on that. That the league has to do better.
They have to, because how many times do we see another team sauce the Pistons, but you look at those free throw attempts and you see, wow, that played some type of a role or impact. Not that the call was right or wrong, but that we see this makes a big difference. When Zach LaVine and all these other players are coming in here and dropping buckets on our head, they're getting the foul calls. And they're not even those teams. It's not even like the Bulls were like some big playoff contender. That's what's crazy about it. And now you have Cade, who's stepping into stardom, not just the spotlight. He's owning it. And this league is going to fail it. You hear this debate of the face of the league going on across the national spectrum, let alone in the local. You got a guy in Cade Cunningham who is Mr. Ethical Hooper, because he's going out there and will drop 35 in your head whether you give him the free throws or not.
Yeah.
He's not going to care. Think about the players that you got to prop up, because if you don't give him the free throws, then all of a sudden you hurt the brand a little bit.
Exactly.
But Cade is the perfect one to back. That's what I don't understand. And he's going out there and he's just doing work regardless of what you call for him or not. But a guy like Harden, I do believe that if those 20 free throw attempts weren't there like last night, it's a different complexity to the game, and it's no slight to James Harden at all. But if anybody else wants to sit out there and tell me that if Cade got the same amount of free throw attempts as Harden last night,
Shit,
the
if he got
Pistons
half
lose,
the free throw
I
attempts.
don't believe that. I will tell you that you're a liar.
Yeah, if he got half the free throw attempts, this might look a little different, man. And to be honest, I know this is speculation and me just bullshitting around. Steve Ballmer and Obama was in the crowd, bro. So maybe they had to, maybe they had to do a little lobbying for the Clippers,
you
man.
think Obama had a parlay?
Yeah, I'm just saying, man.
Parlay.
It makes no sense that he gets that many attempts and Cade gets nothing when they were going bucket for bucket, especially in the paint.
Yeah,
it
Vegas won.
It makes no sense.
Vegas won yesterday.
Well, and unfortunately, it's not going to get any easier. They go to Golden State, who has been scorching hot since they acquired Jimmy Butler, and then they go to Portland, who has also been scorching hot, and they look like they're about ready to turn things around and start winning by maybe next year. But you got to, at worst, take one out of the next two. I would say if you finish the road trip 2-2, it's not the worst thing in the world. You would have liked to go 3-1 or 4-0, but it's these next two games are going to be dogfights, and hopefully they can come out on top. And you know what I love too is I see this in the chat. Super Juggernaut 87. Joey Bosa is a free agent now. What about him?
Hey,
I'm glad you said something. We're going to talk about him next because he's been a big topic of discussion on this network, and I think it's just another one of those interesting players that we need to discuss. But first, I have to tell you about Planet Fitness. It's fitness that fits your budget. No matter where you are, there's a Planet Fitness close by.